The Hidden Dragon Heir. Chapter 1, The Forgotten Son-in-Law. The early morning sun bathed the city of Jiangnan in soft gold, casting its light upon a quiet suburban villa. Inside, a young man stood in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, carefully preparing breakfast. His name was Ethan Lee, the son-in-law everyone mocked. The sizzle of eggs and the scent of fresh porridge filled the air, but the peace didn't last long. "Ethan." A sharp female voice pierced through the air. "Are you still not done? My parents are waiting for breakfast, and you're moving slower than a snail." Grace Zhao, his wife, stepped into the room, elegant in her business attire, her long black hair tied neatly behind her head. Her beauty was striking, but her eyes carried coldness, the kind that could freeze a man's pride. "I'm almost done," Ethan said softly, keeping his tone calm. "Almost?" Grace scoffed. "You've been living off my family for 3 years. The least you can do is move faster. Or is even cooking too hard for you?" Ethan said nothing. He simply placed the last dish on the table, eggs, tofu soup, and pickled vegetables, the same simple meal he made every morning. At that moment, the rest of the Zhao family entered. Grace's mother, Madame Zhao, glanced at Ethan with disgust. "Still pretending to be useful, aren't you?" she sneered. "If it weren't for Grace's soft heart, you'd be sleeping in the streets." Ethan forced a polite smile. He had grown used to these words. They were his daily breakfast, sharper than knives, heavier than stones. Then, as they all sat to eat, Grace's father, Mr. Zhao, a wealthy businessman, spoke with a cold tone. "Ethan, my company is hosting its anniversary dinner tonight. Important guests will attend, real people, not nobodies. Don't show up. You'll only embarrass us." The family laughed lightly, and Ethan lowered his eyes. "Yes, father," he said quietly. He had learned long ago that silence was his best shield. But inside, his heart burned. Later that morning, after the family left, Ethan cleaned the kitchen and stepped out into the city. The streets of Jiangnan buzzed with luxury cars, sharp suits, and glittering towers. Every face seemed to carry arrogance, the same kind that looked down on him daily. As he walked past a group of wealthy young men, one of them smirked. "Hey, isn't that Grace Zhao's husband? The famous house husband?" They laughed loudly. Ethan ignored them and kept walking. But then, from the corner of his eye, he saw an old man collapse by the roadside. Without hesitation, he ran forward, kneeling beside him. "Sir, are you okay?" The man's breathing was shallow. His wrinkled hand grabbed Ethan's wrist, with surprising strength. Your blood," the old man whispered, eyes widening. "You carry the mark of the heavenly dragon." Ethan froze. "What did you say?" The old man's eyes burned with recognition, trembling as he reached into his robe and pulled out a small jade pendant shaped like a dragon. It glowed faintly in the sunlight. "This belongs to you," he said hoarsely. "The bloodline, it has awakened." Ethan stared at the pendant, his heartbeat pounding like thunder. "Who are you?" he asked. The old man smiled weakly. "A servant of your father. Ethan Lee, heir to the Celestial Dragon clan. I have searched for you for 20 years. The words struck Ethan like lightning. His world, the insults, the humiliation, the endless silence, shattered in an instant. You must be mistaken," he stammered. But deep inside, something stirred, a warmth in his chest, a strange pulse in his veins, as if something ancient and powerful had been waiting all along. The old man pressed the pendant into his hand before collapsing once more. "Find the truth," he whispered. "Awaken your destiny, before it's too late." Ethan stared at the jade pendant, its faint light flickering in his palm. The street noise faded. His thoughts blurred. And for the first time in years, a spark of fire lit behind his calm eyes. That night, while the Zhao family laughed and drank at their glittering dinner party, Ethan stood alone on the rooftop of their villa, the wind whipping through his hair. He clenched the jade pendant in his fist. "Celestial Dragon Clan," he murmured. "If this is real, then the world that humiliated me will remember my name." Above him, thunder rolled across the night sky. Somewhere far away, in the mountains beyond Jiangnan, an ancient temple bell rang, as if the heavens themselves had awakened. Chapter 2, The Awakening of the Dragon Blood. The night wind howled across the rooftop, cold and sharp, whipping against Ethan Lee's thin jacket. Below him, the Zhao family villa glowed with warm lights and laughter, but none of it reached him. He stood alone, fingers clenched tightly around the jade pendant. It was warm. Not just warm, alive. Ethan frowned and loosened his grip slightly. The dragon-shaped jade pulsed faintly, a soft green glow beating in rhythm with his heart. Each pulse sent a strange sensation through his body, as if something deep within his bones was answering a long-forgotten call. "This is impossible," he muttered. He had lived 28 years as an ordinary man. Poor. Powerless. Invisible. Nothing in his life suggested ancient clans or celestial bloodlines. And yet, the moment the old man had spoken those words, something inside him had awakened, something he could no longer deny. A sudden wave of dizziness hit him. Ethan staggered back a step, gripping the railing. His vision blurred, and the world tilted violently. Before he could react, a searing heat exploded from his chest, spreading through his veins like molten fire. Ah! He collapsed to his knees, gasping. The jade pendant flared brightly, its glow no longer subtle. Symbols, ancient, complex characters, briefly surfaced on its surface before sinking back into the stone. At the same time, Ethan felt as though his body had been thrown into a furnace. Pain tore through him. It wasn't the kind of pain that made one scream and faint. It was deeper, crueler, like his muscles were being torn apart and reforged, his bones crushed and rebuilt, his blood boiling and reshaping itself. Ethan bit down hard, refusing to cry out. Endure. He had endured humiliation for years. Compared to that, this pain, no matter how intense, would not break him. Images flooded his mind. A vast ancestral hall draped in black and gold. Men kneeling in fear. A dragon coiling through storm clouds, its eyes blazing with authority. A tall man standing alone, bloodied but unbowed, shouting a single name. Ethan. Ethan's eyes snapped open. He gasped sharply as the pain vanished as suddenly as it had come. The jade pendant dimmed, returning to its ordinary appearance, cool and silent in his palm. He collapsed onto the rooftop floor, breathing heavily, sweat soaking through his clothes. Several minutes passed before he could even move. When he finally pushed himself up, something felt different. The night air felt sharper, clearer. He could hear the faint hum of traffic miles away, the rustle of leaves in distant trees, even the shallow breathing of someone sleeping in a room below. His heartbeat was steady. Powerful. Ethan slowly clenched his fist. Boom. A low, muffled sound echoed as the concrete beneath his knuckles cracked. He froze. Staring at the spiderweb of fractures in the rooftop floor, Ethan's pupils contracted. I didn't use any force. Yet the evidence was right in front of him. A strange calm washed over him, not fear, not excitement, but certainty. The old man hadn't lied. The next morning, the Zhao household was as noisy as ever. Where is that useless son-in-law? Madame Zhao snapped as she adjusted her expensive silk shawl. It's past 7. Doesn't he know I need hot tea exactly at 7? Grace Zhao descended the stairs in heels, her expression tired and cold. I'll check. She stopped abruptly at the bottom step. The dining table was already set. Not just the usual plain porridge and side dishes, but a full, carefully prepared breakfast. The aroma was rich but not heavy, balanced and refined. Every dish was plated with precision. Grace frowned. Ethan stood calmly by the table, posture straight, eyes clear. Breakfast is ready, he said evenly. Madame Zhao scoffed. Trying to show off now? You think cooking a few extra dishes will make us respect you? Ethan didn't reply. Grace studied him more closely. Something about him felt off. Not his clothes, not his face, but his presence. He seemed taller somehow. Calmer. As if the air around him had changed. Dad said you weren't allowed to attend the company dinner tonight, Grace said flatly. Don't forget your place. Ethan met her gaze. For the first time since their marriage, he didn't look away first. I remember, he said. His voice was still calm, but there was a quiet weight behind it that made Grace's chest tighten inexplicably. She turned away with a frown. Good. As the Zhao family sat down to eat, Grace's younger cousin, Lucas Zhao, sneered. Hey, Ethan, heard Grandpa invited a major guest tonight, someone from the upper circles of Jiangnan. You wouldn't even be allowed to pour drinks for them. Normally, Ethan would have ignored him. This time, he smiled faintly. Lucas paused. What are you smiling at? Ethan's eyes were steady. Nothing. But for reasons he couldn't explain, Lucas felt a sudden chill crawl up his spine. Later that day, Ethan left the villa and walked through the city streets. He wasn't heading anywhere in particular, just thinking, testing the strange changes in his body. As he passed a small, run-down medical clinic, a voice called out. Young man. Ethan turned. Inside the clinic sat an elderly man with silver hair and sharp eyes. He wore a simple gray robe, completely out of place in the modern city. You carry dragon blood, the man said calmly. Ethan's body tensed instantly. The old man smiled. Relax. If I meant you harm, you wouldn't be standing. Ethan stepped inside, shutting the door behind him. Who are you? He asked. The man rose slowly and bowed, deeply. My name is Samuel Lin, he said. I was once a physician of the Celestial Dragon clan. Ethan's heart thundered. Samuel Lin studied him carefully, eyes shining with emotion. Your awakening last night was imperfect. Without guidance, your power will devour you, or expose you to enemies far more terrifying than the Zhao family. Ethan clenched his fists. Teach me, he said. Samuel smiled. I was waiting for you to say that. Outside, dark clouds gathered over Jiangnan. And far away, in the halls of powerful families and hidden sects, quiet ripples began to spread. The dragon had awakened. And the world would soon feel it. Chapter 3, The First Step into Power. The clinic door closed with a soft click, shutting out the noise of the city. Inside, the air felt heavy, ancient, still, as though time itself moved differently within these walls. Ethan Lee stood silently, eyes fixed on Samuel Lin. You said my awakening was imperfect, Ethan said at last. What does that mean? Samuel Lin gestured toward a wooden chair. Sit. What I'm about to tell you isn't something you can hear standing. Ethan sat. The old man reached beneath the counter and retrieved a small bronze incense burner. With a flick of his wrist, a thin wisp of smoke rose into the air, filling the room with a subtle, grounding scent. Dragon blood is not ordinary power, Samuel began calmly. It is authority, over flesh, over will, over fate itself. Your body accepted it last night because your spirit endured humiliation without breaking. But acceptance is not mastery. Ethan's brows furrowed. So what happens if I don't master it? Samuel's gaze sharpened. Then one day, your emotions will surge, anger, grief, desire, and the dragon blood will respond violently. Best case, you cripple yourself. Worst case. He paused. You draw attention from forces that erase people from history. Silence fell. Ethan exhaled slowly. Then teach me. I don't care how hard it is. Samuel studied him for a long moment before nodding. Good. That stubborn calm, that's why you survived this long. He walked toward the back of the clinic and pushed aside a shelf. Behind it was a narrow staircase leading downward. This clinic is just a disguise, Samuel said. Below is where your real education begins. The underground chamber was dimly lit, carved directly into stone. Ancient symbols lined the walls, dragons entwined with strange geometric patterns. The air vibrated faintly, making Ethan's skin prickle. This is a cultivation chamber, Samuel said. one of the last remaining in Jiangnan. Ethan stepped forward, eyes scanning the walls. Though he didn't understand the symbols, they felt familiar. As if his blood recognized them. Samuel handed him a thin, dark red pill. "What's this?" "Dragon soothing elixir," Samuel replied. "It will prevent your blood from rebelling while you take your first step." Ethan didn't hesitate. He swallowed it. Almost instantly, warmth spread through his body, steady and controlled, nothing like the violent awakening of the night before. "Sit," Samuel ordered. Ethan sat cross-legged at the center of the chamber. "Close your eyes," Samuel said. "Breathe. Forget the Zhao family. Forget humiliation. Forget who you think you are." Ethan obeyed. "Now," Samuel continued, voice low and firm, "listen to your blood." At first, there was nothing. Then, thump. A deep, powerful pulse echoed inside his chest, stronger than his heartbeat. It spread outward, flowing through his veins like a slow-moving river of fire. Ethan's breath steadied. The pain never came. Instead, clarity washed over him. For the first time in his life, his mind was utterly still. "Good," Samuel murmured. "You're forming your dragon foundation." Minutes passed. Or hours. Ethan couldn't tell. When Samuel finally spoke again, his voice carried unmistakable satisfaction. "You've succeeded." Ethan opened his eyes. The world looked different. Sharper. Brighter. Realer. He stood slowly, testing his body. Every movement felt precise, controlled, like a finely honed weapon. "This is only the first step," Samuel said. "But from this moment on, you are no longer an ordinary man." Ethan nodded. "How strong am I?" Samuel smiled faintly. "Strong enough to never be humiliated again." That evening, the Zhao family's anniversary banquet was in full swing. Crystal chandeliers glittered above lavishly dressed guests. Laughter and flattery filled the grand hall as Mr. Zhao proudly entertained business partners and influential figures. Grace Zhao stood beside her parents, elegant and composed, yet strangely restless. Her eyes drifted to the entrance more than once. "Why am I thinking about him?" she scolded herself. Just then, Lucas Zhao burst in, face flushed with excitement. "Aunt! Uncle! Big news," he said loudly. "The Henderson Group's regional director is coming tonight." Mr. Zhao's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. He's already downstairs." The atmosphere shifted instantly. Guests straightened their posture. Smiles became sharper. Servants rushed to prepare. And then, the doors opened. But the man who stepped inside wasn't dressed in luxury or surrounded by assistants. It was Ethan Lee. He walked in calmly, wearing a simple black suit, clean, perfectly fitted, understated yet commanding. The room fell silent. Grace's breath caught. Madame Zhao's face twisted in disbelief. "What is he doing here?" Mr. Zhao's expression darkened. "Security." Ethan stopped at the center of the hall. His gaze swept across the room, calm, detached. "I'm here," he said evenly, "to attend a dinner." Laughter erupted. Lucas sneered. "You? You don't even belong at the door." Ethan smiled faintly. At that exact moment, a sharply dressed man rushed in behind him, panic written across his face. "Director Henderson," someone shouted. The man ignored everyone else and hurried straight toward Ethan. Then, before the stunned eyes of the entire hall, he bowed deeply. "Mr. Lee," he said respectfully, "we've been waiting for you." The hall went deathly silent. Grace Zhao's world tilted. And Ethan Lee, once the forgotten son-in-law, stood quietly as the first cracks appeared in the Zhao family's pride. The dragon had taken its first step into the world. Chapter 4, The Price of Arrogance. Silence crushed the banquet hall. Every conversation died mid-sentence. Every smile froze. Crystal glasses hovered halfway to lips, forgotten. Mr. Henderson, the regional director of the Henderson Group, remained bent at the waist, his head lowered respectfully toward Ethan Lee. The Zhao family stared as if struck by lightning. Lucas Zhao's mouth opened and closed. Director Henderson, you bowed to the wrong person. Henderson didn't even glance at him. He straightened slowly and turned to face the room, his expression stern. Wrong person. I suggest you mind your words. Mr. Zhao's face paled. Director Henderson, there must be some misunderstanding. This man is my son-in-law. A nobody. Henderson's eyes hardened. A nobody, he repeated coldly. Then your Zhao family is blind. A ripple of shock spread through the guests. Grace Zhao's hands clenched at her sides. Her eyes were locked on Ethan, on the calm, unreadable man standing at the center of the storm he had never raised his voice to create. Ethan spoke softly. Director Henderson, you're late. Henderson broke into a nervous smile. My apologies, Mr. Lee. Traffic delayed us. Us? As if on cue, another group entered the hall, men in tailored suits, their presence heavy with authority. Several guests sucked in sharp breaths of recognition. Executives. Investors. People whose names only appeared in financial headlines. They followed behind Ethan. Madame Zhao staggered back a step. This isn't possible. Lucas swallowed hard. Who the hell is he? Mr. Zhao forced a laugh, though sweat trickled down his temple. Director Henderson, perhaps we can discuss business privately. This family matter. There is no family matter, Henderson cut him off. Only business. He turned to Ethan. Mr. Lee, shall we proceed? Ethan nodded slightly. In a moment. He turned his gaze to the Zhao family. The look was not angry. It was worse. Indifferent. For 3 years, Ethan said calmly, his voice carrying effortlessly through the hall, I lived under this roof. I ate last. I spoke least. I endured ridicule quietly. Madame Zhao's lips trembled. Ethan, you. He raised a hand, silencing her without touching her. Tonight, he continued, I came for one reason. Grace felt her heart pound. What reason? Ethan looked at her. For a brief moment, something unreadable flickered in his eyes, regret, perhaps, or disappointment. To remind you, he said quietly, that dignity is not something wealth grants. It is something character earns. The words landed like a blade. Henderson cleared his throat. Mr. Zhao, he said coolly, as of this evening, the Henderson Group is withdrawing all cooperation with your company. What? Mr. Zhao cried. Director Henderson, this deal is our lifeline. Henderson's tone sharpened. You should have thought about that before humiliating the man who controls Jiangnan's eastern capital flow. The room erupted. Controls. Eastern capital? That's impossible. Ethan remained silent. But silence, now, was terrifying. Grace stared at him, her voice barely a whisper. Ethan, is this true? Ethan met her eyes. I never lied to you, he said. It was not an answer. And somehow, it hurt more. Security rushed forward. Remove him. Mr. Zhao shouted desperately. Throw him out. The guards hesitated. They couldn't move. Not because Ethan threatened them. But because the men behind him, powerful, quiet, immovable, had already stepped forward. One look from Henderson and the guards backed away. Lucas collapsed into a chair. We're finished. Madame Zhao's legs gave out. The guests, once eager to flatter the Zhao family, began to retreat, distancing themselves as though from a plague. Within minutes, the grand hall felt hollow. Empty. Ruined. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Ethan stood at the entrance, coat draped over his arm. Henderson bowed again. The arrangements are complete, Mr. Lee. The board awaits your instruction. Ethan nodded. Good. Grace rushed forward. Ethan, wait. He paused. She searched his face, desperate. Why didn't you ever tell me? The wind stirred his hair. Rain began to fall. You never asked, he replied calmly. Then he turned away. As Ethan stepped into the night, lightning split the sky in two. Behind him, the Zhao family's world collapsed. Ahead of him, a far more dangerous one awaited. And far away, within the hidden circles of power, names were being spoken in hushed tones for the first time in decades. Ethan Lee. The dragon had shown its fangs. Chapter 5, Cracks in the Marriage. Rain hammered against the windshield as the black sedan cut through the streets of Jiangnan. Inside, the air was silent, heavy with unspoken tension. Ethan Lee sat in the back seat, eyes closed, his posture relaxed but alert. Across from him, Samuel Lin watched quietly, saying nothing. You handled the Zhao family cleanly, Samuel finally said. You didn't overreach. I wasn't there for revenge, Ethan replied. Not yet. Samuel nodded. Good. Power use too early dulls its edge. The car slowed to a stop before a private courtyard hidden behind tall iron gates. Guards stepped forward and bowed deeply as Ethan exited. This will be your temporary residence, Samuel said. Discreet. Secure. No one from the Zhao family will find you here. Ethan glanced once at the rain-soaked city behind him. Grace's face flashed briefly in his mind. He pushed it away. At the Zhao villa, chaos reigned. Mr. Zhao paced the living room, his phone pressed to his ear. Call them again. There must be a way to salvage this. No one's answering, Lucas muttered, pale and shaken. Madame Zhao sat rigid on the couch, her eyes unfocused. We insulted someone we shouldn't have. Grace stood apart from them, silent. Her world felt unreal. Every memory replayed itself in a different light, Ethan quietly cleaning, Ethan standing at the door as guests mocked him, Ethan lowering his head while she looked away. When did he stop being weak? Or had he never been weak at all? Her phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. You deserve the truth. Meet me tomorrow at 9 a.m., Old Lotus Tea House. Come alone. Her fingers trembled. She knew who it was from. The next morning, Ethan stood in the courtyard, bare hands gripping a steel training post. Thud. The metal groaned. Thud. The post bent inward. Samuel observed calmly. Your control is improving. Your emotions are stable. Ethan lowered his hands. She's meeting me today. Samuel raised an eyebrow. Your wife? Yes. Do you plan to tell her everything? Ethan was silent for a moment. No. Not yet. Samuel nodded. Wise. Love mixed with power is the sharpest blade. Old Lotus Tea House was quiet, steeped in the scent of aged leaves and wood. Grace arrived early. When Ethan entered, dressed simply, the room seemed to shrink around him. He sat across from her without ceremony. Neither spoke at first. Finally, Grace broke the silence. Was any of it real? Ethan met her eyes. Our marriage was. Her throat tightened. Then why did you let them treat you like that? Because, he said calmly, I didn't want power to be the reason you stayed with me. Tears welled in her eyes. And now? Ethan looked away. Now power has already changed everything. Silence fell again. Grace clenched her hands. My family is finished. Yes. She flinched. Did you plan it? Ethan's voice was steady. They destroyed themselves. I only stopped protecting them. Her breath hitched. And me? Ethan met her gaze again, deep, unreadable. I protected you, he said quietly. Until I couldn't. The words hurt more than shouting ever could. Grace stood abruptly. Then what are we now? Ethan rose slowly. Standing on opposite sides of a door, he said. Whether we walk through it together, depends on what you choose to see. She stared at him, heart racing. As Ethan turned to leave, her voice cracked. Ethan, are you dangerous? He paused. Then, without turning back, he answered honestly. Yes. Across the city, in a darkened boardroom, a man slammed his fist onto the table. So the dragon survived, he sneered. After all these years. A woman beside him smiled coldly. Good. Let him rise. Why? Because the higher he climbs, she said softly, the more painful his fall will be. Their screens lit up with Ethan Lee's image. The game had begun. Chapter 6, Shadows of the Past. Night settled over Jiangnan like a living thing. From the balcony of his temporary residence, Ethan Lee gazed at the city lights below. From this height, the world looked peaceful, orderly. But he knew better now. Beneath the glow of glass towers and neon streets lurked invisible currents of power, alliances, and blood debts that stretched back decades. Your name has begun circulating, Samuel Lin said quietly behind him. Not publicly, but in places that matter. Ethan didn't turn. How many? Samuel hesitated. Too many for comfort. Ethan nodded once. Then it's begun. In a luxury hotel across the city, a private meeting was underway. Four men sat around a circular table, each radiating authority. No assistants. No recordings. Just shadows and intent. The Zhao family collapsed too quickly, one man said, tapping the table. Someone was protecting them, until recently. Another leaned back. Not protecting. Containing. A third man smiled thinly. Which means the leash is gone. The fourth, silent until now, finally spoke. Ethan Lee. The name alone shifted the room's atmosphere. He shouldn't exist, the man continued. The Celestial Dragon clan was erased. Every branch. Every heir. And yet, another replied softly, here he is. The man at the head of the table narrowed his eyes. Find out who trained him. Cut off his roots before he grows. The next morning, Ethan was summoned to the underground chamber again. This will be your first real test, Samuel said, placing a small black case on the stone table. He opened it. Inside lay a stack of documents. Evergreen Pharmaceuticals, Samuel continued. On the surface, it's a legitimate company. In reality, it launders money for several underground families and experiments on illegal compounds. Ethan flipped through the files calmly. They targeted me, he asked. No, Samuel said. They targeted someone under your protection. Ethan's eyes sharpened. Who? A street doctor, Samuel replied. The one who treated you when you collapsed years ago. He recognized your blood long before I did. Ethan closed the files slowly. What do you want me to do? Samuel met his gaze. Decide. Ethan stood. I already have. That evening, Evergreen Pharmaceuticals hosted a charity gala. Elegant. Respectable. Untouchable. Until Ethan walked in. This time, there was no Henderson at his side. No entourage. Just him. Security stepped forward instinctively. Ethan glanced at them once. They froze. Not from fear, but from instinct. Something ancient in their bones told them to step aside. Inside the hall, executives laughed and toasted. One of them spotted Ethan and frowned. Who let him in? Ethan stopped in the center of the room. I did, he said calmly. The lights flickered. A pressure settled over the hall, subtle but suffocating. Several glasses shattered. What is this? Someone began. Ethan raised a hand. Every sound died. You have 3 minutes, he said evenly. Release Dr. Chen. Destroy your research data. Transfer ownership of this company. Laughter erupted. "You're insane," a bald executive sneered. "Do you know who you're talking to?" Ethan stepped forward. The floor cracked beneath his foot. The laughter stopped. "You have 2 minutes." Panic crept in. Phones were grabbed. Messages sent. Then, a scream echoed from the back. A door burst open. Dr. Chen stumbled out, bruised but alive. Ethan nodded once. "You made the right choice," he said. He turned to leave. Behind him, the executives collapsed into chaos. By morning, Evergreen Pharmaceuticals ceased to exist. Officially, it was a scandal. Unofficially, it was a warning. Grace Xiao sat alone in her apartment, staring at the city skyline. Her phone buzzed. A news alert. Evergreen Pharmaceuticals dissolves overnight amid internal investigation. Her fingers trembled. She whispered to herself, "What kind of man did I marry?" Far away, in a sealed underground chamber, a woman watched the same news feed. She smiled. "So he's chosen dominance," she murmured. "Just like his father." She turned to the shadows behind her. "Prepare the first hunter." The dragon had moved again. And the past, long buried, was rising to meet him. Chapter 7, The First Hunter. The rain had stopped, but the air still carried the scent of wet stone and electricity. Ethan Lee stood alone in the underground chamber, eyes closed, breathing slow and measured. Since Evergreen Pharmaceuticals fell, his dragon blood had grown more restless, sharper, more alert, as if it sensed danger approaching. Samuel Lin watched him carefully. "They've reacted faster than expected," Samuel said. "That means your enemies aren't just wealthy families. They're trained." Ethan opened his eyes. "How long?" "Hours. Maybe less." As if summoned by the words, the incense flames lining the chamber flickered violently. Samuel's expression darkened. "He's already here." Above ground, the courtyard fell silent. The guards stationed outside froze, eyes wide, before collapsing soundlessly to the ground. A figure stepped through the iron gates. Tall. Lean. Dressed in a dark gray coat despite the lingering humidity. His footsteps made no sound. His name was Victor Crow. In the hidden world, he was known by another title. The First Hunter. Deep underground, Ethan felt it. A pressure, cold and predatory, wrapped around his senses like invisible chains. "So this is what you meant," Ethan said calmly. "An eraser?" Samuel nodded grimly. "Crow has killed 3 awakened heirs in the past decade. None survived their first encounter." Ethan rose to his feet. "Then he's made a mistake," Ethan said evenly. "I'm not awakened." Samuel's brows knitted. "What do you mean?" "I'm remembering." Victor Crow descended the stone staircase without hesitation. He stopped at the threshold of the chamber, eyes scanning the ancient symbols on the walls. "So the rumors are true," he said quietly. "Dragon blood, in Jiangnan." His gaze locked onto Ethan. "You're weaker than I expected." Ethan stepped forward. "You're stronger than I hoped." Crow smiled faintly. "Hope is irrelevant." The air twisted. Crow moved. He vanished. In the same instant, Ethan felt death brush past his throat. He twisted sideways. Clang! Sparks erupted as a hidden blade scraped against the stone wall. Ethan countered, his fist driving forward with controlled force. Crow blocked effortlessly, sliding backward several meters, boots carving lines into the stone. Crow murmured. "Interesting." Samuel shouted, "Ethan, don't let him control the pace." Ethan inhaled. The world slowed. The dragon blood surged, not violently, but with precision. Crow attacked again. Faster. Deadlier. Their strikes collided in a blur of motion, fists, blades, pressure waves cracking the stone floor. Each clash sent tremors through the chamber. Crow's smile vanished. You're learning in real time, he said, voice sharp. That's dangerous. Ethan's eyes glowed faintly, just for a heartbeat. So are you, he replied. He stepped inside Crow's guard. Boom. A palm strike landed squarely on Crow's chest. The hunter was sent flying, slamming into the wall hard enough to fracture it. Silence. Crow coughed, blood staining his lips, but he was laughing. Good, he said hoarsely. Very good. He rose slowly. But you still hesitate. His gaze flicked briefly toward the chamber entrance. Ethan felt it too. Another presence. Crow smiled. You protect too much. A gunshot rang out. Ethan moved without thinking. He twisted, intercepting the bullet with his forearm. The impact tore skin, drawing blood, but the bullet flattened and fell to the ground. The second hunter froze in disbelief. Crow's eyes widened, just slightly. So that's the threshold, he murmured. Ethan looked at the blood on his arm. Then back at Crow. I told you, he said calmly. You made a mistake. He stepped forward. The dragon roared. And for the first time in decades, a hunter felt fear. Far away, in the sealed chamber, the woman's smile finally faded. He crossed it, she whispered. Deploy Phase 2. The war had truly begun. Chapter 8, Crossing the Line. The underground chamber trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling as the pressure unleashed by Ethan's awakened bloodline surged outward like an invisible tide. The ancient symbols on the walls flared faintly, responding to the authority they had been carved to obey. Victor Crow staggered back a step. It was subtle, so subtle that any ordinary observer would have missed it. But Ethan didn't. You feel it now, Ethan said calmly. The difference between a hunter and a ruler. Crow wiped the blood from his mouth, his eyes no longer amused. You've crossed the line, he said slowly. From prey to threat. The second hunter, gun still raised, hesitated, his fingers trembling. Crow raised a hand without looking. Leave. But. Now. The man retreated instantly, dragging the unconscious guards with him. Within seconds, the chamber was sealed again, silence pressing in from all sides. Samuel Lin exhaled shakily. You scared him. Crow laughed softly. No. You showed him the future. Ethan rolled his injured shoulder once. The wound had already begun to close, the flesh knitting together unnaturally fast. Crow's pupils contracted. Regeneration, he murmured. Incomplete, but real. Ethan said nothing. Crow straightened his coat and stepped away from the cracked wall. I won't kill you today. Samuel tensed. You think you can just walk away? Crow's gaze flicked toward him, sharp enough to make Samuel stiffen. I'm not here to win, Crow said. I'm here to measure. He looked back at Ethan. And now I know. Ethan's voice was even. Tell your masters this. Crow tilted his head slightly. I'm not done. He turned and walked toward the staircase. With every step, the suffocating pressure in the chamber lifted. When he disappeared into the darkness, Samuel finally released the breath he'd been holding. That was reckless, Samuel said quietly. You could have died. Ethan looked at his bloodied forearm, then clenched his fist. No, he said. I couldn't. Elsewhere, deep beneath a mountain complex far from Jiangnan, screens flickered to life. Victor Crow stood in the center of a circular chamber, surrounded by masked figures. He crossed the threshold, Crow reported. Earlier than expected. A distorted female voice echoed through the room. Is he controllable? Crow shook his head. No. But he's not reckless either. Silence followed. Then the voice spoke again, colder now. Then we changed tactics. The next morning. Headlines exploded. Jiangnan financial markets shake as unknown capital sweeps through major industries. Grace Xiao stared at her phone, heart pounding. Every company mentioned had one thing in common. They had humiliated Ethan. She felt the ground beneath her certainty crumble. At the same time, her phone rang. Unknown number. She answered hesitantly. "Hello?" A woman's voice replied, smooth and composed. "Mrs. Lee," the voice said. "We should talk." Grace's breath caught. "Who is this?" A pause. "Someone who knew your husband, before the world broke him." The line went dead. Back at the courtyard, Samuel laid out a new set of files. "They're moving through proxies now," he said. "You're not just being attacked, you're being tested." Ethan scanned the documents. A familiar name caught his eye. Eleanor Lee. His fingers tightened. "My mother," he said quietly. Samuel nodded. "Officially dead." "Unofficially." Ethan's gaze hardened, the dragon blood stirring violently. "Alive," he finished. Samuel met his eyes. "And used as leverage." The air turned cold. Ethan closed the file. Then they've made their final mistake. Outside, thunder rolled again. The dragon had crossed the line. And there would be no retreat. Chapter 9, The Name That Should Not Exist. The room was silent. So silent that Ethan could hear the slow, deliberate rhythm of his own heartbeat. Each thud carried weight, controlled, restrained, but edged with something dangerous. "My mother," he repeated softly. The name on the file felt unreal in his hands. Eleanor Lee. A woman officially erased from the world. Samuel Lin watched him closely. "You need to understand something before you act. The fact that they kept her alive means she's not just leverage. She's a message." Ethan looked up. "To draw me out." Samuel nodded. "To see how much of the dragon is instinct, and how much is restraint." Ethan closed the file and placed it neatly on the table. "They won't like my answer." Grace Xiao didn't sleep that night. She sat on the edge of her bed, phone in her hands, replaying the mysterious woman's words again and again. "Someone who knew your husband, before the world broke him." Her mind drifted to moments she had dismissed for years, Ethan standing silently while others mocked him, the way his eyes never truly showed despair, only patience. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. "If you want the truth, come alone. Tomorrow. 7 p.m. Jade Pavilion." Grace swallowed. Against her better judgment, she replied, "I'll be there." That same evening, Ethan stood in front of a full-length mirror in the courtyard residence. He barely recognized the man staring back. Not because his face had changed, but because his presence had. There was weight in his gaze now. Authority. A calm dominance that made even the air feel obedient. Samuel approached quietly. "You're thinking of going yourself?" Ethan nodded. "If I send others, they'll tighten the net." "And if you go," Samuel countered, "they'll spring it." Ethan's lips curved faintly. "Then I'll tear it apart." Samuel exhaled. "Very well. But remember, this isn't a battlefield. It's a stage." "I know," Ethan said. "They want to see which role I choose." The Jade Pavilion was a private club built above a tranquil artificial lake, its glass walls glowing softly in the night. It was the kind of place where secrets were bought, sold, and buried. Grace arrived first. She chose a table by the window, hands folded tightly in her lap. Minutes later, a woman approached. She was elegant, dressed in a dark emerald dress, her posture flawless. Her beauty was mature, composed, and sharp, like a blade wrapped in silk. She smiled faintly. "Mrs. Zhao, or should I say Mrs. Lee?" Grace stood instinctively. "You know my husband." The woman sat calmly. "I knew his parents." Grace's heart skipped. "You knew Ethan before." "Before the massacre," the woman interrupted gently. Grace went pale. "What, massacre?" The woman studied her carefully. "So he hasn't told you?" She leaned back. Ethan Lee doesn't come from money or luck. He comes from blood. Elsewhere, Ethan stepped out of his car across the lake. He paused. The dragon blood stirred, sharp, warning. Samuel's voice echoed in his earpiece. "You're not alone." "I know," Ethan replied calmly. "They want me to see them." From the shadows, figures began to emerge, not attacking, not hiding. Watching. Measuring. Ethan walked forward anyway. Back inside the Jade Pavilion, the woman slid a thin tablet across the table toward Grace. On the screen, an image of a younger Ethan. Beside him stood a tall man and a graceful woman, both bearing the same unmistakable eyes. "This was taken 20 years ago," the woman said softly. 2 hours before the Celestial Dragon clan was wiped out. Grace's breath caught painfully. "That woman," she whispered, pointing. "She looks like..." "Yes," the woman said. "Your mother-in-law." Grace's hands began to shake. "She's alive," the woman continued. "But not free." Grace looked up sharply. "Why are you telling me this?" The woman's smile was calm. Calculated. "Because," she said, "Ethan will burn the world to save her. And when he does, someone must decide whether to stand beside him." Her eyes locked onto Grace's. "Or be crushed beneath him." Outside, Ethan stopped walking. Across the lake, on the glass wall of the Jade Pavilion, a single word appeared as the lights flickered. "Come." Ethan smiled faintly. "So," he murmured, "you've chosen escalation." He stepped forward. The dragon did not roar this time. It waited. And somewhere deep in the shadows of the past, a mother listened to distant thunder, wondering if her son had finally come for her. Chapter 10, Mother of the Dragon. The word on the glass faded as quickly as it had appeared. "Come." Ethan didn't hesitate. He stepped onto the narrow stone bridge that cut across the artificial lake, each footfall steady, unhurried. The watching figures along the perimeter shifted subtly, their attention sharpening. None moved to stop him. They weren't guards. They were witnesses. Inside the Jade Pavilion, Grace's breathing had become shallow. "You're lying," she said hoarsely, though her eyes refused to leave the image on the tablet. "If she were alive, Ethan would have known," the woman finished softly. "No. He was meant to believe she died screaming." Grace looked up. "You said you knew his parents. Who are you?" The woman's gaze darkened, just slightly. "My name is Victoria Hale. Once, I was sworn to protect the Celestial Dragon clan." Grace's blood ran cold. "And now?" "Now," Victoria said calmly, "I survive." She leaned forward. "Your husband's mother is kept in a place designed to break legends. No windows. No names. No mercy. They call it the White Silence Facility." Grace swallowed hard. "Why keep her alive?" Victoria's smile thinned. "Because dead martyrs inspire revenge. Living ones control it." The doors of the Jade Pavilion slid open without a sound. Ethan walked in. The air changed instantly. Grace felt it, pressure, calm, authority all at once. The man entering was still Ethan Lee, but he carried himself like someone who had never needed permission to exist. Victoria stood. For the first time, her composed expression cracked. "So," she said quietly, "the dragon comes in person." Ethan's eyes moved to Grace first. She stood abruptly. "Ethan," she said. "I know," he said gently. The softness of his tone only made the tension sharper. Then he looked at Victoria. "You're late," Ethan said. "If you were truly sworn to protect my family, you wouldn't be sitting across from my wife bargaining with half-truths." Victoria held his gaze. "If I hadn't done exactly that, you wouldn't have come." Ethan stepped closer. The glass walls of the pavilion hummed faintly, responding to the pressure of his presence. "You wanted escalation," Ethan said evenly. "You have it. Speak." Victoria exhaled slowly. Your mother is alive. But you can't reach her, not yet. The facility that holds her answers to no nation, no law, no family. Grace's voice trembled. Then why tell us at all? Because, Victoria replied, they plan to move her. Ethan's eyes narrowed a fraction. When? Within 72 hours. Silence fell. Outside, the lake rippled as though disturbed by an unseen wind. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them, the calm was absolute. Then this ends in 72 hours, he said. Far away, in a subterranean complex buried beneath layers of reinforced steel, a woman sat in a white room. No mirrors. No clocks. No sound. Her hair had silvered with time, but her posture remained straight, dignified. Eleanor Lee opened her eyes. For the first time in years, the dull ache in her chest flared sharply, warm, familiar. She placed a hand over her heart. Tian Long, she whispered, using a name no one had spoken aloud in decades. Somewhere beyond concrete and silence, thunder rolled. And for the first time since the massacre, the mother of the dragon smiled. Chapter 11, 72 Hours. The number echoed in Ethan Lee's mind like a countdown carved into stone. 72 hours. He stood on the balcony of the Jade Pavilion, overlooking the still water below. To anyone watching from afar, he appeared calm, almost detached. But beneath that stillness, the dragon blood coiled tightly, waiting. They'll expect you to rush, Samuel Lin said through the secure line in Ethan's ear. They'll prepare traps along every obvious path. Ethan's voice was steady. Then I won't take any of them. Behind him, Grace stood silently. She had insisted on staying, on hearing everything. You're talking about this like a war, she finally said. Ethan turned to her. Because it is. She swallowed. And your mother is the battlefield. The words landed heavily. Victoria Hale stepped forward. The White Silence facility exists outside the normal power structure. It was built for one purpose, holding people who cannot be allowed to die. Grace looked at her. Why tell us the truth now? Victoria's gaze didn't waver. Because once she's moved, she'll vanish completely. And because your husband, she looked at Ethan. He's the only one who can tear it open. Ethan said nothing. But his silence was an answer. That same night, deep within the White Silence facility, alarms flickered briefly, then stopped. Technicians frowned at their screens. Power fluctuation, one muttered. Just a hiccup. They didn't notice the microscopic cracks forming along the reinforced walls. Nor the subtle rise in internal pressure. Eleanor Lee sat on her bed, eyes closed. Her breathing was calm. She could feel it now, clearly. Her son was no longer lost. Back in Jiangnan, Ethan convened his first real council. Samuel Lin. Victoria Hale. Director Henderson. 3 other figures whose names never appeared in public records. A map lit up the table. White Silence facility. No satellites. No external comms. Multiple kill zones, Henderson said grimly. Even special forces would fail. Victoria added, they'll move her through an underground magrail tunnel. You'll have minutes at best. Ethan studied the map. Then he reached out and turned it off. We're not breaking in, he said. Everyone looked up. We're taking it with us. Silence. Samuel's eyes widened slowly. You mean? I mean, Ethan interrupted calmly, we make them evacuate. Victoria frowned. That facility is designed to withstand siege. Ethan met her gaze. It was designed to withstand armies. He paused. I am not an army. A chill ran through the room. Grace waited for him later, alone. You're going to burn everything, she said quietly. Ethan sat beside her. Only what refuses to move. She turned to him. And if I can't follow you where you're going? Ethan didn't answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "Then stay where it's safe," he said. "But don't stand in front of me." Grace's eyes filled, but she nodded. She understood. Far away, the woman in the sealed chamber watched the countdown begin. "So he chose devastation," she said coolly. Victor Crow stood beside her, arms crossed. "He'll succeed." The woman smiled thinly. "Then we'll see if he can survive what comes after." She pressed a button. White silence, transfer protocol initiated. The clock began to tick. 72 hours until the world learned what happened when a dragon stopped asking for permission. Chapter 12, The First Tremor. The first tremor did not come with fire or sirens. It came as silence. Across Jiangnan, power grids flickered, then stabilized. Financial markets hesitated for a fraction of a second. Military satellites adjusted their orbits by a hair's breadth, responding to something they could not quite define. Ethan Lee stood alone in the underground chamber beneath the Jade Pavilion, his palm resting on the cold stone altar Samuel Lin had unearthed only days earlier. Ancient. Unregistered. Unexplainable. The moment his skin touched it, the dragon blood responded. A low vibration pulsed outward, not violent, not loud, but absolute. Samuel watched from behind reinforced glass, throat dry. It started. Ethan closed his eyes. He wasn't forcing the power anymore. He was listening to it. Thousands of miles away, within the White Silence facility, every sensor spiked at once. Pressure anomaly in Sector C. No external cause, repeat, no external cause. Steel walls groaned softly, like something massive shifting its weight. Victor Crow's communicator buzzed non-stop. "They're reporting structural stress," an operator said urgently. "But there's no attack." Victor's jaw tightened. "Then tell them to stop calling it stress." He stared at the live feed, at the hairline fractures creeping along the ceiling. "This is a warning." Back in Jiangnan, Victoria Hale paced the room. "You're provoking them." Ethan opened his eyes. "No," he said calmly. "I'm reminding them." He lifted his hand from the altar. The vibration ceased. Miles of reinforced concrete exhaled as if spared execution at the last second. Victoria stared at him. "They'll accelerate the transfer." "Good," Ethan replied. "That's what I want." Samuel frowned. "You're hurting them." Ethan turned. "Exactly." Grace felt it too. She stood at the window of their room, fingers pressed to the glass, heart pounding for reasons she couldn't explain. Something had changed. Not outside. Inside the world. She whispered, "Ethan, what are you becoming?" In the sealed chamber, the woman smiled as the tremor faded. "So subtle," she murmured. "So restrained." Eleanor Lee opened her eyes. For the first time in years, they were clear. "That wasn't restraint," Eleanor said softly. She stood. Chains clinked, and then fell silent. "That was my son knocking." The woman's smile froze. Alarms screamed. Transfer accelerated to 24 hours. Security level Omega engaged. Victor Crow barked orders. "Move her now. Underground route only." The facility came alive, gears turning, protocols overlapping, every system screaming urgency. They believed they were escaping. They didn't realize they were stepping exactly where Ethan Lee wanted them. Back at the altar, Ethan exhaled slowly. "Phase 1 is complete," he said. Samuel swallowed. "And Phase 2? Ethan's eyes darkened, ancient fire flickering beneath their calm surface. "Now," he said, "I make the world choose." He turned away from the stone. Somewhere deep underground, a hidden magrail tunnel powered on for the first time in decades. And far above it, the dragon began to descend. Chapter 13, The Magrail Gambit. The Magrail tunnel stretched beneath the mountains like a serpent in steel and shadow. Cold fluorescent lights flickered as automated trains hummed faintly, carrying precious cargo far from prying eyes. Eleanor Lee sat inside a reinforced carriage, restrained but unharmed, her silver hair catching the dim light. Victor Crow walked beside her, his presence a silent warning. "You'll be safe," he said, though the tension in his jaw betrayed the lie. "No one has ever broken into this transport." Eleanor's lips pressed into a thin line. "And yet my son will." Victor's eyes narrowed. "Don't underestimate the enemy." Above ground, Ethan Lee surveyed the city from a concealed observation post. He didn't need maps, satellites, or digital feeds. His senses were already in the tunnel, feeling the pulse of every vehicle, every structural vibration. The dragon blood guided him, precise and subtle. Samuel Lin watched Ethan closely. "You're inside their network before stepping foot underground." Ethan's gaze didn't leave the cityscape. "I'm not stepping in. I'm rewriting it." He activated a compact device, small enough to fit in his palm but powerful enough to hack into the Magrail's old systems. Lights flickered across the city, indicating subtle shifts in power grids, rerouted energy flows, and disabled checkpoints, all orchestrated by his unseen hand. Grace Xiao stood beside him, holding her breath. "Ethan, this is madness." He smiled faintly. "Madness or necessity? Watch." Inside the tunnel, the train's automated systems hummed as it surged forward. Crow's eyes flicked nervously toward the control panels. "Something's wrong," he muttered. The doors that should have been locked tightened their magnetic seals. The train's speed fluctuated minutely, enough to unsettle precision sensors, imperceptible to ordinary humans, but not to the dragon. Eleanor stiffened. "What is happening?" Crow's hand went to his comm device, but static interrupted him. The tunnel lights flickered, then dimmed. A soft vibration ran through the rails, a heartbeat. Not the trains, but something else. "Impossible," Crow muttered, eyes darting forward. "No one." Ethan's voice came through an encrypted feed, calm and deliberate. "Good evening, Mr. Crow. I hope your passengers are comfortable." Crow froze. How did? "Call it instinct," Ethan said. "Call it dragon blood. But you'll call it choice soon enough." The train jerked slightly. Eleanor gripped the armrests instinctively. Crow tried to override the controls, but Ethan had anticipated every measure. Every manual switch, every failsafe, neutralized silently, invisibly. The dragon was everywhere and nowhere at once. Grace watched Ethan on the monitor, worry etched into her features. How can he control it without being there?" Samuel Lin's voice was calm but grave. "Because he doesn't just move physically. He moves with the essence of his blood, with authority over the flow of energy, over systems, over outcomes. He's a storm waiting to be released." Grace swallowed. "And the first hunter?" Ethan's expression darkened. "Distracted. Preoccupied. He won't see what's coming until it's too late." Back in the train, Victor Crow's instincts screamed danger. The walls seemed to bend subtly, the vibrations beneath the rails erratic and alive. He barked orders to the operators, but the systems didn't respond. Panic flickered across his face for the first time. Eleanor Lee's eyes widened. "He's here, isn't he?" Crow's hand tightened around her wrist. "Yes," he admitted reluctantly. "And he's not coming to negotiate." The train's automated lights dimmed completely, leaving only the faint glow of emergency lanterns. A distant metallic echo reverberated through the tunnel, a sound like steel teeth grinding, yet impossible to locate. Eleanor felt a strange calm descend over her. "It's him, he's controlling it, he's here." Above ground, Ethan observed every pulse, every vibration, every micro-movement. He did not touch the train, did not board it. He didn't need to. He exhaled slowly. "Phase 3, he murmured. The dragon's presence spread subtly but unmistakably through the rails and surrounding infrastructure. Security systems locked down against themselves. Automated doors slammed in the wrong sequence. The train's speed fluctuated slightly but dangerously, forcing Crow to focus entirely on the mechanics instead of the prisoner. And in the midst of this controlled chaos, Eleanor Lee smiled faintly, understanding the truth of the dragon at her son's core. Ethan's voice whispered through the tunnel's interference, calm and deadly. Your mother will leave this tunnel on my terms, or the world will answer for it. A storm was coming. And nothing, no law, no guard, no hunter, would stop it. Chapter 14, The Tunnel of Fate. The train hurtled through the dark magrail tunnel, every wheel vibrating in tandem with an invisible pulse. Eleanor Lee sat upright, her hands unclenching from the armrests, her eyes calm yet alert. She could feel him, her son, somewhere in the layers of the world, moving the steel and stone as effortlessly as breathing. Victor Crow's face had grown pale. He's inside the systems. He's not even here, and yet, he shook his head, frustrated. This is beyond anything I've trained for. Eleanor's gaze softened. It's not systems. It's him. It's always been him. Crow's fingers tightened around the tablet controlling the train's overrides. You think this is a game? You think you can manipulate physical reality from miles away? Eleanor shook her head slowly. Not manipulate. Command. Her voice carried a quiet authority, one that seemed to resonate in the walls of the tunnel themselves. Like a dragon. Above ground, Ethan Lee sat in a nondescript black vehicle, watching a live feed of the magrail tunnel projected on a holoscreen. Grace Xiao sat beside him, clutching her hands tightly. Ethan, she whispered, her voice trembling. How is this even possible? Ethan's expression was unreadable, calm, almost clinical. Because the dragon never waits for permission, he said softly. It moves with instinct, with authority, and with memory. Every system, every molecule that can respond to force will respond to it. Samuel Lin leaned over the screen. The rails are reacting to him like extensions of his body. There's no precedent for this. No protocol, no army, no AI can withstand it. Grace swallowed hard, fear and awe intertwining. And if he makes a mistake? Ethan's eyes darkened slightly, his jaw tightening. There are no mistakes when you act as the dragon does. Only consequences. Inside the tunnel, the train lurched violently, throwing Crow off balance. Alarms screamed in an electronic frenzy. The walls groaned as the carriages slightly twisted under invisible pressure. Crow's eyes flickered to Eleanor. Hold on. It's going to get worse. Eleanor's voice was calm, almost serene. I've waited decades for this moment. Let him come. Suddenly, the train slowed to a crawl as the magrail itself seemed to resist. Lights flickered violently. The emergency brakes engaged automatically, but the train didn't stop. The steel tracks subtly shifted, forcing the vehicle to adjust in micro-movements that disoriented the operators. Crow's frustration boiled over. Impossible. Nothing in the schematics allows for. The lights went out completely. Darkness consumed the train. Only the faint glow of emergency lanterns revealed Eleanor's calm face. Above, Ethan closed his eyes, feeling every vibration in the tunnel. The dragon blood surged, coiling and uncoiling like a living thing inside him. He extended his consciousness through the rails, through the air, through the very structure of the magrail itself. He could see every movement, every pulse of energy, every minute adjustment of the train and its surroundings. Grace whispered, Ethan, are you sure this is safe? Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. The train shuddered again. Crow's tablet screeched in protest. The vehicle is rejecting control. The systems are moving against us. Eleanor smiled faintly. That's him. The steel rails twisted almost imperceptibly. The train jerked hard to one side, forcing Crow to regain control with desperate precision. Eleanor felt no fear. Only anticipation. Miles above the magrail tunnel, the city lights flickered faintly as a distant, undetectable pulse emanated from the underground. The world shifted subtly in response to a single presence, Ethan Lee. He had not yet moved physically. Yet the dragon was already at work. A soft, resonant voice escaped from his lips, almost a whisper to himself. "Come out, mother. It's time to end the waiting." And somewhere deep within the white silence facility, Eleanor Lee's heart leapt as if answering the call. The first real obstacle had begun, and the tunnel itself had become the battlefield. The countdown of 72 hours now felt like seconds. The dragon had awoken fully. And nothing in the world would remain the same. Chapter 15, The Dragon's Grip. The magrail tunnel twisted and coiled beneath the mountains like a living thing, every vibration echoing Ethan Lee's presence. From above ground, no one could have guessed that inside, the dragon blood of one man was bending steel and electricity to his will. Inside the train, Victor Crow's fingers flew over the override controls, but each command met resistance. Every automated system reacted against him, subtle yet insistent. Panic flickered across his face, the first real sign that Ethan's influence extended farther than any human or machine could anticipate. Eleanor Lee remained calm, her hands folded in her lap. She could feel it, her son's power threading through the steel rails and through the train itself. Each micro-adjustment, each pulse of control, was precise, perfect, and unrelenting. He's inside everything," Crow muttered under his breath, voice tight. "How is this possible?" Eleanor's silver eyes glinted faintly. "Because he is not inside, he is." Above ground, Ethan Lee's hands rested lightly on the console of the observation vehicle. His eyes were closed, senses stretched across the underground network, feeling every pulse of the train, every micro-shift of the rails, every subtle adjustment of magnetic fields. Samuel Lin, seated beside him, leaned in. Every system is bending to him. Not remotely controlled, influenced. He's not hacking. He's dominating it. Grace Xiao's hands were clenched tightly in her lap. "That's terrifying." Ethan opened his eyes, their dark depths glowing faintly with an inner fire. "Terrifying is for those who rely on fear. I rely on certainty." Inside the train, Crow's frustration erupted. He barked orders into his comm, but the network refused him. Lights flickered. The steel rails subtly shifted. Automated safety protocols engaged incorrectly. The carriages lurched violently. Eleanor Lee's gaze never left the dim emergency lights. "He will not harm us. He will take us where we must go, and he will leave nothing standing in the way." Crow's hands tightened around the tablet. "We can't outrun him. We can't fight him. He's everywhere." The train jerked again, and Crow staggered, nearly losing his balance. Eleanor whispered softly, almost to herself, "Tianlong." Above, Ethan exhaled slowly. The dragon blood inside him surged in perfect rhythm with the rail's pulse. He extended his awareness further, feeling the faint tension in every bolt and every magnetic coil. "It's time," he said, voice calm, almost casual. "Phase 4 begins." Samuel glanced at him sharply. "Phase 4? Ethan's eyes narrowed. Time to guide them to the choice they've been avoiding. Suddenly, deep inside the tunnel, the train shuddered violently. Emergency lights flickered, casting jagged shadows across Crow's tense face. Doors locked and unlocked unpredictably. The vehicle slowed abruptly, then surged forward. Crow cursed under his breath. "This is impossible." Eleanor Lee's lips curved in a faint, knowing smile. "Not impossible," she murmured. "Necessary." The train came to a sudden, controlled halt at a reinforced section of the tunnel, exactly where Ethan had directed it. Crow's attempts to override the system failed completely. Every electronic control, every mechanical lever, was now in harmony with an unseen force. Victor Crow finally looked up at Eleanor, his voice tight with disbelief. "Your son, he's here. He's controlling this entire system, without moving an inch." Eleanor nodded slightly, silver hair catching the faint emergency glow. "He is the dragon." Above, Ethan's eyes glowed faintly in the darkened vehicle. His voice was a whisper through the secure comm, yet it carried the weight of inevitability. "Open the doors," he said. Inside the train, the emergency doors slid apart. The rails beneath the car seemed to pulse in rhythm with a heartbeat. Crow took a step back instinctively. Eleanor stood slowly. The carriages were empty now, free of obstacles. No guards. No barriers. Only a pathway, crafted perfectly by Ethan's unseen hand. Eleanor Lee's eyes softened, filled with both awe and relief. He has truly become the dragon. Crow's lips pressed into a thin line. This is not over. Ethan's voice echoed through the calm one last time. Calm, unyielding, absolute. Phase 4 is always over, for those who refuse to move. The dragon had taken its grip. And the first real tremors of change began to ripple through the world. Chapter 16, The White Silence. The reinforced carriage sat motionless in the magrail tunnel. The lights flickered once, then stabilized, as though obeying an unseen rhythm. Eleanor Lee rose gracefully, her silver hair catching the faint glow of the overhead lanterns. She inhaled slowly, sensing the subtle vibrations in the steel rails, the unmistakable mark of her son's presence. Victor Crow's fingers hovered tensely over the control panel. Every attempt to regain command failed. "This is impossible," he muttered. "He isn't even here physically." Eleanor's eyes narrowed. "He doesn't need to be. He moves with the world itself." Crow took a step back. "And you're letting him?" Eleanor turned to him, her voice steady, sharp as tempered steel. "I've waited decades for this moment." "Letting him?" "No. I am guiding him, as I once guided others. The dragon is not reckless. He is inevitable." Above ground, Ethan Lee observed the magrail through a network of sensors, his eyes calm but piercing. Samuel Lin and Grace Xiao sat beside him, tense and silent. "Ethan, are you sure about this?" Grace asked softly. Ethan's jaw tightened. 72 hours are almost up. They'll move her through the final transfer soon. I cannot allow that to happen. Samuel leaned closer. The White Silence facility is designed to contain legends. Not even armies breach it. If anything goes wrong. Ethan interrupted, his tone cold but measured. Nothing will go wrong. Not when the dragon decides the rules. Deep beneath layers of reinforced steel and concrete, the White Silence facility stirred with quiet urgency. Security alarms blared as the automated transport carriages carried Eleanor Lee toward a sealed chamber at the heart of the facility. Every corridor, every sensor, every mechanical lock was a challenge, a gauntlet designed to break even the strongest of wills. But somewhere in the shadows, a presence watched the system, calculating, commanding, guiding. The train slowed, doors unlocked, and pathways cleared, not by anyone inside the facility, but by the dragon above ground. Victor Crow's frustration had reached its peak. Every failsafe, every security protocol, bypassed. How is this possible? Eleanor stood calmly, eyes sharp. Because it is him. And because he does not move like a man, he moves like a force. Above the facility, Ethan exhaled slowly. His dragon blood pulsed in perfect rhythm with the facility's energy network. Every bolt, every panel, every sensor bent subtly to his will. The transport carriage had reached a critical junction where the facility's outer defenses converged into a single corridor. He guided it with precision. Not a single soldier, no matter how trained, could stop it. Samuel Lin whispered in awe, "He isn't just controlling machines, he's controlling possibility itself." Grace's hands trembled. "It's terrifying." Ethan's voice was low, but sharp enough to slice through the tension. "Good. Fear is a tool. They will learn quickly who they are dealing with." Inside the carriage, Eleanor's eyes gleamed faintly as she sensed the subtle shifts. The air itself seemed lighter. The reinforced walls had ceased to feel like a prison. "The dragon is here," she whispered, softly, almost reverently. Crow's gaze snapped toward her. "Do you understand what he is doing? He is bending the facility to his will without stepping inside." Eleanor's expression softened, a rare warmth flickering across her features. "I understand. And I am proud." My son has truly awakened. The transport carriage entered the heart of the White Silence facility. All sensors reported normal operation, but Crow knew the truth. He simply could not see the invisible hand guiding everything. Ethan's voice finally echoed through the secure comm system, calm and absolute. Prepare to open the doors. Your prisoner walks free, by my terms, not theirs. Crow's eyes widened. No, this cannot. A metallic shiver ran through the facility as the reinforced doors began to part. Eleanor Lee stepped forward, feeling the world expand again for the first time in decades. And somewhere, far above the tunnels and underground grids, the dragon watched and waited, patient, precise, and unstoppable. The White Silence had ended. And the storm had only just begun. Chapter 17, Reunion in Shadows. The heavy doors of the White Silence facility slid open with a hiss, revealing nothing but the dimly lit corridor beyond. Eleanor Lee stepped out carefully, every movement deliberate, every breath measured. After decades of confinement, the air itself felt foreign, yet strangely familiar, as if it remembered her. Victor Crow stood beside her, tense and alert. His eyes darted to every corner of the corridor. You, don't move fast. You'll alert them, he hissed. Eleanor's gaze remained calm. I do not move to hide. I move to meet him. Crow's brow furrowed. Meet who? Eleanor's lips curved faintly. The dragon. Above ground, Ethan Lee stood on the cliff overlooking the valley that held the facility. He didn't move physically, yet the corridors, sensors, and even the steel of the transport rails seemed to obey him. Every pulse, every vibration, every minute adjustment was directed with perfect precision. Samuel Lin glanced at him from the vehicle. Ethan, you're not even inside, and yet. Ethan's voice cut through the tension, calm and commanding. I do not need to be inside. I am already there. Grace Xiao swallowed hard, her hands trembling. And if someone tries to stop you? Ethan's gaze hardened, glowing faintly. They won't. Not when the dragon has decided the outcome. Inside the corridor, Eleanor moved with surprising ease, guided subtly by the invisible hand of her son. Crow followed closely, frustration mounting with every step. The security cameras that should have recorded them flickered and died. Automated locks disengaged silently. Reinforced panels that were supposed to resist any human interference shifted just enough to allow passage. Impossible, Crow muttered under his breath. Everything, every protocol, he's. Eleanor looked at him, silver eyes sharp. He is no man you've ever known. He is your reckoning. Crow's hand twitched toward his sidearm, but he hesitated. He could feel it, the overwhelming presence of power. He had faced killers, assassins, and armies. Yet this was something else entirely. The corridor opened into a vast central chamber. Steel beams converged into a vaulted ceiling, and observation decks lined the walls, long abandoned but still functional. Eleanor paused at the threshold, sensing the exact moment to move forward. Then she felt it. A presence. Not physical, not yet, but absolute. The dragon was there. Watching. Waiting. Guiding. Her lips trembled, a rare display of emotion after decades of silence. Tianlong, she whispered. Above, Ethan extended his consciousness further into the facility. Every security measure, every sensor, every pulse of energy, he controlled it. The transport rails had delivered her safely, but he did not stop there. He enveloped the chamber in a subtle but absolute authority. Samuel Lin leaned closer. Ethan, he's sensing her. He knows exactly where she is. Ethan's eyes glowed faintly, dark and unyielding. And now, it's time for the reunion. Inside the chamber, Eleanor's eyes widened as the shadows shifted subtly. A figure emerged, moving with calm authority, yet not a step had been taken physically toward the chamber. It was Ethan. Not in form, not in flesh, yet undeniably present. The dragon blood coursed through the space like a living pulse, bending the world around him, creating the illusion of presence. Eleanor's heart leapt. Tianlong, she whispered again, voice catching. A low vibration ran through the steel beams, almost like a roar contained in silence. Crow's eyes widened. He had faced monsters before, but this was the essence of legend made real. Eleanor stepped forward. The distance between mother and son had collapsed, even without a single physical step. "You've come," she said softly, tears welling in her eyes. Ethan's presence pulsed like a heartbeat. Calm, controlled, infinite. "I never left," he said. "And I never will. You are free now." Crow's jaw tightened. This cannot be undone. Not even for one man. Eleanor turned her gaze toward him, resolute. "It is done. The dragon has chosen. And you are already too late." The chamber trembled slightly, not from machinery, not from an earthquake, but from the awakening of the dragon itself. Outside, the world remained unaware. Inside, a reunion centuries in the making had finally begun. And the storm was no longer coming. It had arrived. Chapter 18, The Hunter's Choice. The central chamber of the White Silence facility hummed with a tension that was almost tangible. Eleanor Lee stood face to face with the invisible presence of her son. Every fiber of the building, steel, sensors, air itself, responded to his authority. The dragon's influence was absolute, suffusing the chamber without a single visible step. Victor Crow's face was pale, his usual composure shattered. He had faced assassins, armies, and monsters trained to kill, but this was beyond comprehension. How is this possible?" he spat, voice cracking with frustration. Eleanor's silver eyes met his. "It is possible because the dragon has awakened. He is not bound by walls, locks, or human understanding. And you are a witness, not a master." Crow's jaw clenched. For a decade, he had been the first hunter, the apex of every covert force, the nightmare of awakened heirs. Yet now, for the first time, he was powerless. "Then I have a choice," he muttered, almost to himself. "To obey, or to die trying." Eleanor's gaze softened, almost imperceptibly. "Choose wisely, Victor. Your fate is no longer yours alone." Above ground, Ethan Lee extended his consciousness with precision, monitoring every structural weak point, every pulse of the facility. He felt the presence of Crow like a stone dropped into a pond, ripples of tension and aggression radiating outward. Samuel Lin leaned over, voice low. "Ethan, he's calculating. He's assessing whether to attack, to retreat, to gamble." Ethan's eyes darkened, glowing faintly with the coiled fire of the dragon. "He has already gambled. He just doesn't know it yet." Grace Xiao whispered, awe and fear mingling in her voice. "He's everywhere and nowhere at the same time." Ethan nodded. "And he will be where he needs to be when the time comes." Back in the chamber, Crow's breathing was controlled but strained. He glanced at Eleanor, then around the walls, then back at her. "I've spent my life hunting monsters. But this is not a monster I can face with skill or strength alone." Eleanor stepped closer, her voice steady and commanding. "You have always been a hunter, Victor. Now, you can choose to serve as one, or perish under the dragon's wrath." Crow's hands tightened at his sides. He had trained for decades to confront impossible odds. He had prepared for death countless times. But never like this, not against a presence that dominated reality itself without moving an inch. He exhaled slowly. "And if I refuse?" "The dragon will decide," Eleanor said quietly, almost gently. Ethan's consciousness pulsed through the facility. He could feel Crow's hesitation, the precise calculations of a man trained to survive. He didn't move physically, he didn't need to. Every micro-adjustment in the chamber, every subtle shift in the environment, was a direct reflection of his intent. Crow faltered. The air seemed heavier, the shadows deeper. The presence pressing upon him was suffocating yet hypnotic. Finally, he nodded slightly, almost imperceptibly. "I obey," he muttered. Eleanor's eyes softened. "Good. You will survive, but only if you remember this: you serve a force beyond comprehension. One wrong step, and you are nothing. Crow's lips pressed into a thin line. For the first time in his life, he felt small. Fragile. And yet, he was alive. Above ground, Ethan withdrew slightly from the direct control, the pulse of the dragon within him calming, coiling like a predator satisfied with its prey. Samuel Lin glanced at him. He submitted. Ethan's expression was calm, almost cold. Submission is not defeat. It is recognition of inevitability. Crow will serve a purpose now. Grace's voice trembled. And your mother, she's safe? Ethan's gaze hardened. She is free. And the dragon does not forget those who are bound to it. In the White Silence facility, Eleanor Lee exhaled for the first time in decades, feeling the air without the weight of chains. Victor Crow stepped back, calculating, wary, but alive. The dragon had claimed victory without a single strike. And in the shadows, far above and deep within the walls, the storm's first true wave began to rise, signaling that the world outside would soon learn the consequences of awakening a force it could neither measure nor resist. The dragon had chosen its allies. And it had begun to reshape the world. Chapter 19, The Dragon Ascends. The White Silence facility lay silent once more, but it was no longer a prison. Eleanor Lee stood in the central chamber, her silver hair catching the faint glow of the emergency lights. For decades, she had known only confinement, only the rhythm of endless days measured in despair. Now, she breathed freely, every inhalation a whisper of life reclaimed. Victor Crow stood near the far wall, still tense, still cautious. He had survived the dragon's presence and chosen to yield. Yet he could not shake the feeling of being a leaf in a storm, a pawn under a force beyond comprehension. Eleanor turned to him, her voice calm but firm. Do not forget what just occurred. The dragon decides, and the world bends to it. You serve now, not by loyalty, but by necessity. Crow swallowed, forcing his pride to submission. Understood. Above ground, Ethan Lee stood on the cliff overlooking the valley. The pulse of his dragon blood had quieted to a low, controlled rhythm. Every sensor in the facility, every rail, every metallic beam had responded perfectly. The operation had gone exactly as planned. Samuel Lin broke the silence. Phase 5, then? Ethan's eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. Yes. The dragon does not rest while threats linger. This was only the beginning. Grace Xiao, standing close, glanced up at him. The world, it doesn't know what's coming, does it? Ethan's expression was unreadable. Let them remain unaware. Awareness invites resistance. Control it before they see it, or they will die believing they were free. Deep within the facility, Eleanor Lee approached the massive reinforced doors that led to the surface. She placed her hand on the cold steel and felt the pulse of her son's presence, guiding her. You've truly become the dragon, she whispered, almost reverently. The world will know you soon enough. Crow's gaze followed her, his unease growing. And if someone tries to stop you outside? Eleanor's eyes softened. Let them try. He will not fail. Outside, the valley stretched beneath the night sky, untouched yet trembling with the unseen influence of Ethan Lee. He did not move physically toward the facility, yet every structure, every sensor, every microsecond of energy within it bowed to his will. The dragon's reach was limitless, precise, and absolute. A faint wind swept through the valley, carrying with it the whisper of inevitability. Samuel Lin exhaled. He's everywhere at once. Ethan's gaze hardened. He is the dragon. And the dragon does not negotiate. The dragon ascends. Back in the central chamber, Eleanor Lee finally stepped through the facility doors and into the cool night air. Her heart beat steadily, alive, free, and unburdened. She turned toward the direction of Ethan's presence, not visible, yet undeniably there. Tianlong, she whispered. The dragon's presence surged subtly, like ripples across the valley. Eleanor felt the power coiling, unrelenting, and infinite. Victor Crow took a step back instinctively, realizing that nothing beyond this moment would ever be the same. Somewhere far above, somewhere unseen, Ethan Lee allowed himself a faint smile. His mother was safe. Crow was subdued. The world was about to learn that the dragon had awakened fully, and nothing, not armies, not governments, not conspiracies, could stand in its path. The dragon had ascended. And the first true wave of its power had begun to reshape the world. Chapter 20, The World Shakes. The night sky over Jiangnan was still, deceptively calm. But deep beneath that tranquility, the pulse of the dragon's awakening spread like wildfire. Ethan Lee's presence stretched far beyond the valley, invisible, uncontainable, touching sensors, power grids, and communications networks with a subtle, irresistible authority. From the command centers of powerful nations to underground syndicates and elite mercenary networks, something shifted. Alarms flickered briefly, satellites adjusted slightly, automated systems hesitated, an untraceable, imperceptible force had arrived, and the world did not yet understand it. Above ground, Ethan stood silently on the cliff, the wind tugging lightly at his coat. His eyes were fixed on the horizon, unblinking, absorbing every vibration and pulse of the world below. Samuel Lin and Grace Xiao remained at his side, tense but silent. Samuel whispered, "Ethan, they'll notice. Once they do, nothing will stop the chaos." Ethan's gaze hardened. They should notice. But by then, it will be too late. The dragon does not give warnings. It only moves. Grace shivered. The world is fragile beneath him. Ethan's lips curved faintly, not a smile but a statement of inevitability. Fragile? No. The world is clay. And I am the hand that shapes it. Thousands of miles away, powerful governments convened emergency meetings, their security networks flaring with unexplainable anomalies. Military leaders stared at screens that seemed to shift themselves, at drones that stopped mid-flight without explanation, at satellites that appeared to hesitate in orbit. "We're under cyber attack?" one officer asked nervously. "No," another replied, frowning. "This isn't digital. This is something else. Something intelligent." Unknown to them, they were already observing the subtle waves of Ethan's influence, the dragon's reach touching the world before a single human hand could respond. Back at the White Silence facility, Eleanor Lee stepped fully into the open night, feeling the cold wind on her face for the first time in decades. The valley was quiet, yet she could feel the ripple, the hum, the unrelenting certainty of her son's presence. "Tianlong," she whispered, tears glinting in her eyes. "You've become everything I hoped and feared." Victor Crow, standing stiffly behind her, glanced around nervously. This power, it isn't just control. It's inevitable destruction if challenged." Eleanor nodded slightly. "Yes. But it is also salvation. He chooses carefully, and no one outside this valley understands how precise his wrath can be." Above the valley, Ethan closed his eyes briefly. The dragon inside him surged, coiling like lightning beneath his skin, not in rage, but in perfect, patient anticipation. He felt the shifting of systems, the tremors in the digital and physical worlds, the subtle fear of men who did not even realize they were being watched. "Phase 6, he whispered. "The world will begin to bend, and choose." Samuel Lin looked at him with unease. "Ethan, this is more than just freeing your mother or the White Silence. They'll see it as war." Ethan's eyes flared briefly. "War is only what they call it when they lose control. The dragon does not start wars. It enforces inevitability." Grace reached out, her hand brushing his arm. "And what about those who won't bend?" Ethan's gaze softened slightly, but the fire beneath it remained unyielding. "They will learn, in time." Far away, in the hidden chambers of powerful syndicates and governments, alarms screamed. The operators stared at their screens, confused and terrified. Satellites realigned themselves inexplicably. Automated defense systems misfired or shut down entirely. Drones hovering over strategic points halted midair. No one knew how. No one knew why. Only one presence had caused it, Ethan Lee. The dragon had left its lair. The world had felt its first touch. And every shadow, every secret, every hidden force was about to realize that the game had changed forever. The dragon had ascended. And the world, fragile, unprepared, arrogant, would tremble under its awakening. Chapter 21, Shadows of Resistance. The world had felt the dragon's presence. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, yet undeniable, an invisible hand rearranging the threads of power. Governments whispered of untraceable anomalies. Corporations panicked as their most secure systems inexplicably faltered. Elite mercenaries and clandestine syndicates spoke in hushed tones of something alive in the wires and steel, though none could see it. Ethan Lee did not watch the chaos from afar, he was already inside it. Not physically, but with every ounce of his dragon blood, every spark of his awareness, he had extended into the world's hidden arteries. Power grids, defense networks, surveillance systems, all bent subtly, invisibly, to his will. Samuel Lin watched the live feeds, his voice low. "Ethan, they're starting to respond. Military, private security, they're mobilizing in ways that will trigger global panic." Ethan's gaze did not waver. "Let them. The dragon does not fear response. It anticipates it." Grace Zhao's voice trembled. "And if someone tries to stop you directly?" Ethan's eyes darkened, glowing faintly in the dim light. "They will not stop me. Not even if they understand the consequences." In a secure command bunker halfway across the continent, men and women trained to confront the impossible convened frantically. Screens flickered with encrypted messages, drones that should have been invisible to their systems were suddenly gone, and defense protocols had failed without explanation. "This isn't an attack," one officer said, voice tight with disbelief. "It's someone bending reality itself. Nothing we've trained for can match this." A shadowy figure in the corner, cloaked and precise, smiled faintly. "Then it's time we see what the dragon wants." Outside the bunker, the world was beginning to feel subtle tremors, traffic lights flashing in strange sequences, energy grids momentarily surging, and satellite feeds freezing for fractions of a second. No human hand could control it. No algorithm could anticipate it. Only one man, Ethan Lee. Back in Jiangnan, Ethan moved with calculated precision. His presence was everywhere, coiling into systems, creeping through networks, whispering into the very infrastructure of the world without being seen. Samuel Lin's voice was tense. "They'll trace the disruptions eventually. You can't hide forever." Ethan shook his head. "Hiding is irrelevant. The dragon doesn't hide. The dragon commands." Grace reached out, touching his arm gently. "And if they fight back?" "They won't," Ethan said quietly, yet the conviction in his voice left no room for doubt. "The dragon is not in war. It is inevitability. They can resist for a moment, but the outcome is already decided." In the heart of the world's covert operations, agents activated black site protocols, elite units dispatched to intercept threats. Every movement, every plan, every calculation was anticipated, countered, neutralized, sometimes before it even occurred. Victor Crow, standing silently in the shadows of the White Silence facility, muttered under his breath, "I thought I knew power, but this is beyond comprehension." Eleanor Lee stepped beside him, serene, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "It is the dragon. He does not fight like men fight. He moves as the world itself moves." Crow's lips pressed into a thin line. "And if the world pushes back?" Eleanor's silver eyes softened. "Then he will teach it obedience, without mercy." Above all, Ethan Lee remained calm. His mother was free, Crow was subdued, and the world's hidden powers were beginning to stir. The dragon blood within him pulsed, coiling and uncoiling like lightning restrained in a fist. "The shadows are moving," he murmured. "It is time to step from the valley. Time to remind the world that legends are not myths. They are inevitability." A distant tremor ran through global networks, subtle but unmistakable. Servers shivered. Satellites hesitated. Systems that were once thought unbreachable faltered. The world had finally noticed. And the dragon was no longer content to wait in shadows. The war for control of reality itself was about to begin. Chapter 22, The Dragon Strikes. The night sky over the metropolis was quiet, deceptively serene. Streetlights glimmered, cars moved along the avenues, and the hum of civilization masked the subtle tremors beneath its surface. But somewhere, in the pulse of every wire, every circuit, every heartbeat of the city, the dragon was awake. Ethan Lee did not move physically into the city. He did not need to. His presence alone was enough. Like a shadow spreading over steel and glass, his influence seeped into the grids, the networks, the very systems that the city relied upon. Samuel Lin watched the feed in tense silence. "Ethan, you're reaching beyond the facility now. Any miscalculation, and the consequences." Ethan's dark eyes glimmered faintly. There are no miscalculations when the dragon decides. The world will bend, whether it wants to or not. Grace Xiao swallowed, fear mingling with awe. "And if they resist?" Ethan's voice was low, unyielding. "Resistance is merely confirmation. They cannot resist inevitability." In the city, elite covert forces scrambled. Black-clad agents moved with precision, intercepting every perceived threat. Defense systems, designed to counter cyber attacks, whirred to life, but faltered inexplicably. Automated turrets misfired. Communication networks glitched. Drones hovered, then abruptly shut down, their controllers helpless. In their command center, officers exchanged frantic glances. What is causing this? It's not a virus, not a hack, it's intelligent." Outside, Victor Crow observed silently. His usual confidence was shaken. "I've faced every type of assassin, every type of agent, but this is not human. It's..." Eleanor Lee, standing beside him, interrupted calmly, "It's the dragon. He does not strike with weapons. He strikes with inevitability." Crow's jaw clenched. "And the world doesn't understand that yet." Ethan Lee's presence radiated through the city like a controlled storm. Streetlights flickered in rhythm with his heartbeat. Surveillance systems bent to his will. Trains and subways adjusted speed and course subtly, unnoticed by the operators, yet orchestrated perfectly. Traffic signals created pathways that seemed random, yet all led toward areas he had chosen. Samuel Lin muttered, "He's orchestrating the city itself, as if it's an extension of his body." Ethan's lips curved faintly. "Exactly. Every system, every flow, every piece of infrastructure is part of the dragon. And the dragon decides the outcome." Grace's voice was trembling. "The world, it doesn't even know it's being controlled." Ethan's eyes darkened. "Not yet. But soon, they will learn, and they will fear." At the heart of the city, the dragon began his first visible display of power. Massive cranes halted mid-swing. Skyscrapers' automated systems flickered, elevators stopping in midair, doors locking and unlocking with perfect timing. Power grids momentarily surged and dimmed, sending an electric pulse through the city that caused alarms to scream. Inside the command centers, technicians tried desperately to override the anomalies. Every attempt failed. Every protocol had been anticipated. Every escape route accounted for. A lone operative whispered, voice trembling, It's like the city itself is alive. And it's obeying someone." Above it all, Ethan Lee's eyes glowed faintly as he extended his consciousness further, touching every system in the metropolis, predicting every reaction before it happened. The dragon was no longer in the shadows. He was now the pulse, the unseen authority that bent the very world to his will. Victor Crow stepped back, awed and fearful. "I've fought legends before, but this is an entire world in his hand." Eleanor Lee's silver eyes gleamed softly. "He is the dragon. And the dragon does not stop for anyone." Ethan exhaled slowly. The city trembled beneath the invisible force of his presence. Every system, every network, every corner of the metropolis was under control, but subtly, elegantly, like a predator moving through a hunting ground. He whispered, almost to himself, "The dragon does not strike blindly. It strikes with precision, with inevitability." A final pulse ran through the city, subtle but unmistakable. The world had seen the first wave of the dragon's awakening. Chaos had begun, not loud, not explosive, but absolute. And the dragon was just getting started. Chapter 23, The Dragon Unleashed. The world awoke to subtle tremors that no one could fully explain. Across continents, servers hesitated, satellites flickered, automated systems misfired, and intelligence networks reported anomalies that defied all logic. Governments, corporations, and secret organizations scrambled, but the dragon was already steps ahead, unseen, unstoppable. Ethan Lee did not move physically. He did not need to. The dragon's reach extended invisibly through the veins of the world, grids, networks, transportation systems, even the flow of information itself. Every decision made by man, every calculation by machine, was already anticipated, manipulated, and redirected. Samuel Lin's voice broke the tense silence inside their observation vehicle. Ethan, this is beyond any scale we've ever imagined. You're not just controlling systems, you're controlling outcomes. Ethan's dark eyes glowed faintly. I am not controlling outcomes. I am creating inevitability. The world thinks it acts freely, yet every movement now bends to the dragon. Grace Xiao's hand shook slightly as she reached toward him. And if someone tries to fight back? They will fail, Ethan said, voice calm but edged with deadly certainty. Because the dragon does not negotiate. It enforces. In the heart of a European metropolis, an elite covert task force scrambled in panic. Drones froze midair, surveillance cameras rotated inexplicably, defense grids flickered in and out of operation. Tactical commands repeated themselves in endless loops, overridden before they could be executed. Captain Reinhardt, a seasoned operative with decades of experience, clenched his fists. This is impossible. Every system we touch, it's like it's alive. Like someone is everywhere at once. Unknown to him, he was not imagining it. Every pulse, every hesitation, every micro-adjustment was orchestrated by a presence so precise that it bent reality itself. Ethan Lee, the dragon. Back in the observation vehicle, Samuel Lin's jaw was tight. Ethan, you're reaching across nations. They'll see this as a full-scale attack. Political, military, everything, they'll mobilize against it. Ethan shook his head slowly. They are already mobilizing. That is precisely the point. They must see the inevitability of the dragon. Resistance is the proof of its authority. Grace swallowed hard. So you're forcing them to react? Yes, Ethan replied simply. The world needs to learn that the dragon does not wait, and it does not fail. In Asia, automated high-speed trains halted mid-journey, city traffic lights arranged themselves into impossible sequences, and private military networks discovered that encrypted communications had been subtly rerouted without detection. The world, in every corner, was beginning to understand, something, or someone, was omnipresent, omniscient, unstoppable. Victor Crow, standing quietly beside Eleanor Lee, muttered under his breath, I've fought the strongest, the cleverest, the fastest, but this is beyond comprehension. It isn't just power, it's inevitability. Eleanor's silver eyes gleamed softly. He is the dragon. And the dragon is no longer bound to a single place. The world itself is now his domain. Crow swallowed hard, understanding fully that even he, the first hunter, could not interfere without succumbing to the dragon's reach. Ethan extended his consciousness further, touching the systems, networks, and infrastructure of major cities across the globe. Every power grid, every satellite, every financial network responded, subtly, invisibly, to his will. He whispered softly, almost to himself, the dragon does not strike blindly. It strikes with foresight, with authority, with inevitability. Those who oppose it will not survive. Those who follow will prosper in its shadow. A subtle pulse ran across the planet, a quiet yet unmistakable reminder that nothing now operated outside the dragon's influence. Governments debated, secret organizations schemed, and intelligence agencies scrambled. Yet all of it, every calculation, every move, was already anticipated, accounted for, and countered before it could begin. The dragon had awakened fully. The world had felt its first true touch. And soon, It would show them what absolute power looked like. Chapter 24, The Dragon's Dominion. The dawn over the Pacific Ocean cast a pale light across the cities of the world, yet the sun's calm could not mask the invisible storm that had begun. Across continents, systems moved with subtle precision, patterns that no human hand could direct, yet all orchestrated perfectly by one mind, Ethan Lee, the dragon. Inside the observation vehicle perched atop a quiet mountain, Ethan surveyed the planet. Through a network of screens, satellites, and feeds. His dark eyes glimmered with quiet intensity. Samuel Lin sat beside him, tense. "Ethan, you've done it," Samuel said cautiously. "The world doesn't even realize it yet, but they're bending to you." Ethan shook his head slightly, voice calm and absolute. "Not bending, obeying. The dragon does not merely influence. It enforces. Every structure, every system, every secret, now acknowledges its presence. And soon, the people will understand that resistance is meaningless." Grace Zhao's fingers trembled as she spoke. "And if someone tries to counter this on a global scale?" Ethan's gaze hardened. "They already are. And they will fail. The dragon does not act blindly, it anticipates, calculates, and strikes only where necessary. Threats will remove themselves if they cannot survive inevitability." Across the globe, secret organizations convened emergency councils. Governments scrambled their military assets. Intelligence agencies attempted to trace the anomalies, only to find that every digital footprint, every calculation, every contingency was already controlled or accounted for. Captain Reinhardt, still in Europe, gritted his teeth. "It's everywhere, but nowhere. It's not hacking, it's not a virus. It's alive." In another command center in East Asia, an operative muttered, "It's as if the world itself obeys someone. And that someone sees everything before it even happens." Victor Crow, watching from the White Silence facility, murmured, "I've fought the impossible before, but nothing has prepared me for this. The dragon isn't a man, or even a force, it's inevitability itself." Eleanor Lee's silver eyes glimmered softly. "And it is our son. The one who has always been destined to change the world." Ethan Lee extended his consciousness across continents, subtly nudging infrastructure, redirecting supply chains, rerouting communication networks, and ensuring that critical threats neutralized themselves before they could fully react. He whispered softly, the words almost lost in the hum of technology and wind. "The dragon does not require armies. It does not require weapons. It requires patience, precision, and inevitability. Those who resist will remove themselves." The first public hints of disruption appeared subtly. A stock exchange halted for 30 seconds, satellites inexplicably changed orbit, power grids surged and dimmed, military systems hesitated mid-execution. Civilians noticed only fleeting anomalies, a traffic light sequence that seemed impossibly timed, elevators that stopped mid-floor, drones hovering impossibly still. Yet the hidden eyes of the dragon saw every micro-reaction, every ripple of fear and awe, and adjusted silently. Samuel Lin exhaled. He's not just influencing the world, he's shaping it. Every step, every breath, every movement, all bending toward his will. Ethan's voice was quiet, but carried the weight of inevitability. The dragon does not bend. It claims. It enforces. And the world will learn that it has no choice but to comply. Far above, in the shadows of governments, syndicates, and elite forces, the ripple spread. No one understood its origin. No one could resist it. The dragon's presence was everywhere yet nowhere, touching every secret, every hidden plan, and every concealed weapon. Victor Crow murmured again, voice almost a whisper of awe and fear, "He doesn't just control, he dominates. Without touching, without striking, he owns everything." Eleanor nodded, serene and resolute. "He is the dragon. And dragons do not negotiate. They do not bargain. They only enforce the world as it should be." Ethan Lee's dark eyes glimmered across the screens, satellites, and live feeds. The pulse of the dragon blood surged within him, coiling like lightning restrained in a fist. "The world is mine to awaken," he murmured. "And the dragon will show it the meaning of inevitability." The first true phase of global domination had begun. And nothing, no army, no government, no secret organization, could stop the dragon. Chapter 25, The Dragon's Reckoning. The world stirred under a weight it could not see, could not measure, and could not resist. Governments scrambled, armies mobilized, and secret organizations activated their deadliest contingents, but all of it was already anticipated, calculated, and neutralized by a force they could neither touch nor comprehend. Ethan Lee, perched atop a remote cliff overlooking the Pacific, felt the pulse of every system, every network, every hidden operation across the globe. His dragon blood surged like coiled lightning, extending his consciousness far beyond the limitations of flesh. Samuel Lin's voice broke the tense silence. "Ethan, you're not just controlling systems anymore. You're rewriting reality. Every strike, every defense, it's already decided." Ethan's dark eyes glimmered faintly. The dragon does not fight wars the world understands. It enforces inevitability. And now, it begins its reckoning. Grace Xiao's hand trembled on his arm. They'll see this as total chaos. Governments, militaries, everyone. Are you ready for the consequences? Ethan's lips curved faintly, a shadow of a smile. Consequences? They are irrelevant. The dragon does not fear consequences. It defines them. In Europe, covert forces scrambled. Elite squads were dispatched to intercept what they believed to be a new wave of cyber-terrorism. Automated drones faltered midair. Tactical protocols looped endlessly. Communications networks failed in precise patterns, leaving them blind to each other's movements. Captain Reinhardt clenched his fists. It's controlling everything. Every system, every line of code, every calculation, it's like it's alive. And it's anticipating us. Meanwhile, in East Asia, military strategists experienced the same inexplicable phenomena. Power grids surged and dimmed, high-speed trains halted mid-journey, and encrypted communications rerouted themselves without detection. Panic rippled through every secret facility. Victor Crow, standing at the White Silence facility, muttered under his breath. "I faced the impossible, but this is inevitability incarnate. He doesn't strike. He decides." Eleanor Lee's silver eyes shone faintly. "He is the dragon. And dragons do not bargain. They do not fight, they enforce." Ethan extended his consciousness further, touching the core of every network, every military asset, every hidden power across continents. Systems that should have resisted folded instantly. Strategies that were calculated to perfection crumbled without execution. Even the most secret organizations, masters of stealth and manipulation, found themselves guided by an unseen hand they could neither identify nor oppose. Samuel Lin whispered, tense. "He's not just manipulating, he's punishing them before they even act." Ethan's voice was calm, absolute. "This is the dragon's reckoning. Those who resist, remove themselves. Those who submit, survive and thrive under its shadow."